Yo, guys, quick update here from your boy. MicroStrategy, they're going to raise $40 billion to buy more Bitcoin. Instant reaction by the market, obviously, is it's selling off. I think long term, generally bullish, but short term, clearly the market's not digesting it that well. I think Coinbase is also trading down after hours on earnings here, as you can see. So you can see the earnings here on TradingView. The estimate, the actual revenue. Why is it not showing me the actual numbers here? Earnings. Report today. Estimate 0.45. Reported. Oh, so that hasn't even come in yet, I guess. I thought it would happened already, but it might be. It generally, if it's down, it's because earnings were slightly less. So I think it's 0.44 and it was reported 0.45. Regardless, I'm not really worried. The MicroStrategy stuff I think is kind of interesting because I personally believe that regardless of what price does, Saylor's going to buy. So him saying he's going to buy a bunch more for 3 more years, it doesn't mean that we're going to go up for 3 years. And I imagine some people will analyze that news, and that's the conclusion that they're going to come to is like, oh, he's going to be buying nonstop for 3 years. But remember, he bought all the way down and all the way through the bear market, and people were making fun of him, right? Every time when we were going down, Michael Saylor's Bitcoin Jesus right now because price is going up. He's up $8 billion on his buys, as he should be. But when we were going down and he was buying, the sentiment was quite different. Everyone was talking shit about Michael Saylor. Oh, this idiot keeps buying. He's going to go broke. Where's Michael Saylor's liquidation point? He's going to be underwater. So people just have really short attention spans, and they're generally disingenuous on Twitter. They'll talk shit about him, and next thing you know, they're, oh, Michael Saylor's the fucking man. So just more evidence that everyone's retarded except for your boy. And you, because you're watching me. So anyways, that news is kind of a nothing burger to me. I mean, I do think it's kind of insane that this one guy is, along with BlackRock and these institutions are going to own so much Bitcoin, but who knows, right? It's decentralized, right? Make sure you own at least one, I guess. Anyways, so let's talk about the charts here. We've taken out all but one high now, right? So we've taken out this high, this high, this high. This is the very last one. I don't really see an argument for shorts here. I think it's very difficult to be bearish here, obviously. I think the game plan here is to look for longs. Now, yes, we had a 3-day SFP here, sure. But with this high being so close to price, right, but not being tagged yet, the only type of short I could possibly see happening is if we get some sort of deviation here and then maybe a pullback like down into here. Like that would be the only type of trade on the short side I could see. And again, this is a trade. This is not like sell spot, kind of thing. Or, hey, I'm not going to be bullish because this might happen. We're bullish. We're going to be making new all-time highs clearly very soon. I've been saying this forever, as you guys know. But any sort of like short trade idea would come, I think, on some sort of deviation of that high. I don't see any other reason to be bearish. Like you go on the low time frame here, maybe there's a short setup, somewhere here down into here. But I'm much more interested in saying, okay, we're super duper fucking bullish. Where is this thing going to pull back to? And I want a long. So to me, on the 3-day chart, this seems like a really nice area where we have this old high here, okay? Old high here and this order block. So if we get some sort of consolidation here and then a dig into that order block, that's kind of the long trigger I'd be looking for. I think that'd wash out a lot of people. I think that would be a really nice long setup. Now, we don't have to come back that far. Of course, if you're day trading, you're on the even lower time frame. Like down on the hourly, you could be saying, okay, I think that this is it. You could think maybe this was it right here, right? We just tagged it. We just ran out all the lows here. Maybe that was the long you took. Oopsie daisy. Let me just, why won't this fucking close? Maybe that was the long here itself. It's already going to go, right? Stop down there. This was the long idea on a dip into here, and this is going to rip, sure. But with it being monthly end tomorrow and being so close to all-time high, I'm going to just kind of give it a little bit. I don't need to rush into anything. I had a really good month trading-wise. Longing Bitcoin at 59K. Forget fucking 70K. I longed down here and then longing Solana. So I'm not fussed about rushing into position here. I'm down to let this kind of chop around here. I do think there's going to be lots of volatility, which is awesome. So we'll wait and see. I really want to see what happens once we break all-time high. Do we get some sort of crazy whipsaw? Those are the kind of trades I'm interested in. Just in hindsight, right? Like using the weekly has been so clean. Weekly order block. Here's a new one. So what are the likelihood of if we come down here, I think you want to be a buyer. It just seems to be, the easiest play. Yeah, it takes longer to play out. You got to be a little bit more patient, but it's printed for the entirety of this uptrend here. And it's printed on the way down as well, right? This is your weekly order block, right? So on the short side as well, weekly order block. Like it takes more time, the high time frame chart, but it's very rare that these high time frame levels, these weekly levels, just get nuked through. Like usually they get respected. It's just that if you're looking for a bounce here or here, right, or even here on the low time frame, those areas are going to be choppy and they're going to look kind of shitty and scare you by. But then when you zoom out on the weekly, it was all just a wick and then it ended up being an uptrend, right? So still looks very good. No reason to be worried. No reason to be bearish. If we get some sort of fade up here, maybe there's a scalp, but that's it at most. I'm much more interested in if we get lucky enough to long down here, I would definitely be taking that. I know I made a post today about the weekly or the monthly breaker and, in typical fashion, that's such a big fucking box. But you guys know how these work, right? We've got the sweep. If we get the MSB on the monthly, right, this whole thing becomes a monthly breaker. And yeah, it's huge. What do you do? To me, within the monthly breaker is a monthly order block, and any sort of bullish setup here on the weekly, on the daily, is going to be a giga swing. So that's all that I'm showing there. I'm not saying you should, set your orders, here and put your stop all the way down here. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that once we get the close above here, any sort of pullback into here is buy zone. So what you do, right, just like I do on the H12 and the H1, if this is the monthly, we can go down to the weekly or the 3-day, and what are we looking for? Order blocks, SFPs, things of that nature. Order block right here. Maybe there's an SFP, right? So we get the close, come down here, and then we get a 3-day SFP there. That's going to be a giga long trigger with your entry there, right? And your stop below that SFP, and then you get that giga swing. That's all that's kind of showing. And it's also just funny to bait people for engagement because I get paid to do it now, thanks to Elon. Ethereum, performing decently today. Ethereum BTC, again, it's just been going down, down, down. You want another chart? You're tired of looking at this and wondering when it's going to bottom? Look at Bitcoin dominance. These charts are just the inverse of each other, right? They're just the inverse of each other. So this thing is going to bottom soon. I am a believer that it is going to bottom somewhere within this monthly demand. So, 0.3 area up to 0.35. It could bottom where we are right now. But within this consolidation, I do believe that this is going to bottom. I also think that there's going to be some divergences forming. And I've talked about this in previous streams. It's not something that I personally use, but we are going to get a weekly divergence here, I think, soon. It's not in yet, right? But you kind of have one here already, right? So this is clearly going down, and this is starting to turn up, and I think we'll get a lower time frame one here as well. And again, I showed you guys in a previous video, I can tell when there's a divergence just by looking at the chart, right? The lows are getting less amplitude between the waves. So I do think that this is going to bottom soon. But again, my thesis is this trades just like last all-time high. BTC is going to put in a God candle. Then it's going to do this. Then Ethereum's going to run, right? So this is when Bitcoin put in the God candle. This was Ethereum. Then Ethereum ran, right? So I think it's going to be very similar. Solana still looks pretty good. Bitcoin is the strongest. So as much as Sol is up, there's a lot of stuff that's up. Bitcoin's still the strongest. If you just look at the chart, downtrend here has been broken, right? Solana still technically hasn't really put in a higher high like Bitcoin has. Obviously, Ethereum hasn't either. And a lot of these altcoins haven't, and they're definitely demonstrably weaker than Bitcoin itself. WIF, I think, could be actually an underperformer. So if we get some sort of pop up on Bitcoin strength, so let's say Bitcoin trades above all-time high, right, to like 77 or something, and then it pulls back 5 or 10K because it very well could whipsaw like that. I could totally see WIF doing something like this and like eating shit. So because Bitcoin is so dominant right now, which is demonstrated by looking at BTCD, right, and looking at any altcoin versus Bitcoin for the most part, right? All of these are getting smoked versus Bitcoin for the most part. Bitcoin is outperforming all of these right now. Like Solana's been obviously an outlier, but for the last, year, they're about even. So it outperformed to start 2023, but right now they're about even. But a lot of altcoins are, what's some other altcoins here I can look at here, are not doing well versus Bitcoin. Like didn't make a higher high, started to sell off. Popcat's probably outperforming BTC because it's Popcat. No. What the fuck Bitcoin is that? That seems wrong. Regardless. But a lot of altcoins are underperforming Bitcoin still. Ethereum being the perfect example, WIF being another good example. So what that means, right, is if Bitcoin does this, let's say, during this up leg, most altcoins are going to underperform. And then during this pullback, most altcoins are going to overperform to the downside. Okay? And we saw that even just yesterday when Bitcoin went up and then pulled back like 1%, 2%. Some altcoins went down like 5%, 6%. So that's what you want to be looking for, is altcoins that if Bitcoin is going to show some weakness after another move up, there's going to be some altcoins that really overperform to the downside. How do you take advantage of that? Well, there's a few ways. One is shorting, obviously. Two is if it's an altcoin you like, that might mean that it's going to pull back really hard and there might be a good opportunity to buy on that dip. Equities, I still like, there's basically just, I don't even know what to say about this chart. It just goes up forever, it seems. Is there potential that this thing is getting ready to pull back a little? Maybe. Like this structure here kind of looks like this a little bit. So maybe we're going to get some sort of correction. I don't know. Dollar, I do think, is pulling back. So I posted the analysis on the dollar. I don't even know when, a little while ago. I talked about us taking out this high, right? You can see here, there's my drawings that popped up. This is due for a pullback. That's good for crypto. That's good for risk. But yeah, overall, I think things look good, guys. Not much has changed. I don't think you should for most of you, don't even think about pressing the red button. The only reason I even bring up potential short ideas is because I'm a trader. Like I'm willing to try and take a short at all-time high because I'm fucking nuts. And I trade and I think I can make money. But in terms of, if you're not really trading and you're just like, okay, I'm holding spot, which I do nothing right now. Like your best bet is to wait. I've said this every time we've come to this low, right? What have I said? I said, this is not consolidating like this for 6 months to just go to 80K. I think that this is consolidating like this. And once it finally breaks out, which it looks like it might be doing, it's going to 6 figures. So I think this trade's way higher. I think you just need to be patient. and let it do its thing. I don't think you need to rush into anything. Like, so if I take a fib like this, and then you copy and paste this, right? And we make it a standard deviation on top, right? So one standard deviation of this entire move, 90K, 110K. If you want to use fib extensions, which are basically the same thing, there's your one standard deviation. Your 1.168 is up here. So two standard deviations, 150K. To me, all-time high, complete guesswork. Another thing I want to talk about, once we're near all-time high and once we start going to all-time high, what you're going to start seeing on the timeline is some insane price predictions. If you want to be brought back down to earth, just go look at previous cycles and look at the retards. Like the retards, you know who they are. The fucking retarded people on Twitter. There's so many of them. And they start calling $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 Bitcoin. Bitcoin's going to $1 million. Like these fucking idiots, right? They're going to start throwing out crazy targets. And it's very easy to get sucked into that. Be like, oh, fuck, maybe I shouldn't sell, right? Maybe I shouldn't sell. It's going to keep going higher. Maybe I shouldn't sell. And then you end up being bullish because some retard told you it's going to 100K here or here. And you hold it and never sell. And now it's down 50%. You're like, what the fuck happened? Right? And the point of this rant is nobody fucking knows where it's going to top out. I don't believe anyone has a actual reliable way to estimate when it's going to end. People are going to guess, and some people might guess correctly, and then you might say, well, he did it last time, or he used this. There's no way to know for sure. It might hit my fib expansion, and that might be the top, and fucking hallelujah, I look like a genius. But no one actually knows where the bull run's going to end. Nobody fucking knows. I personally, my guess is somewhere between like 100, and then the top end is 150. But that is a complete guess. So how do you go about not falling into the euphoria and actually making sure you take some profit? So what I've done each of the last bull markets, right? So this one, the one prior to that, is two things. I used a arbitrary number that I want to start cashing out at. Last cycle, it was 50K. So I told myself when I was buying at 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10K, when I was buying down there, I told myself if this goes to 50K, I'm starting to sell my spot. Did I feel dumb when it went to 60 and then 70? Of course, right? But then when it nuked back down to 15, I was pretty comfortable that I had sold up there, right? It's not about catching the top. It's about catching the meat of the move. So that's one. Have an arbitrary number where you're happy, whether that's a number for Bitcoin or that's a number of, for your portfolio, but make it realistic, right? Like if you're saying, well, my number's 300K, what happens if it goes to 250? You're just never going to sell any. And so that's where point number 2 comes in as a way to help you. I wanted to start selling at 50. It went beyond 50. Great. But the other thing I do is I use market structure. So using at least the daily or the 3-day, even up to the weekly, once we start trending here above all-time high, if at any point we lose 3-day structure, there's a good chance the top is in. Now, this consolidation broke that sentiment. Last cycle, the last 2 cycles, as soon as we lost structure on the 3-day, so this is the 3-day chart, it's going up, 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 and then as soon as it made a lower low, that was the top on the 3-day. And for the entire cycle. The last 2 cycles, that worked. Now, that didn't work so far here because it did, because here is the 3-day market structure right here. So we never made a lower low on the 3-day, and we never made a lower low on the weekly, right? What I meant to say is the daily also worked last cycle. So we never made a lower low on the daily here. Never. Until the top was in. There's your lower low. That was the top. But in this cycle, it's a little, and it worked here too. Once we made a lower low on the daily, that was the top. And that worked in 2017 as well. But in this cycle, we did make a lower low on the daily, depending on what you use for market structure, but it's like this or this, right? It's definitely not this. Like to me, this is the lower low on the daily. The lower or the higher low, excuse me, it got broken, as you can see. So the 3-day, however, was respected. So I'll be doing something similar like that as well. So let's say I think it's going to 100K or 150K, and that's your number where you want to sell. And we're on the 3-day, and it's doing this and this and this, but we get to like 120, and then it does this. To me, I would probably sell. The reason this is a really good strategy is twofold. One, it makes sure that even if we don't get to that arbitrary number you set, because remember, your arbitrary number is a guess. There's no for sure way to know where the top's going to be. Everyone's guessing. A lot of people have fucking retarded guesses. A lot of other people have more reasonable guesses, right? Like you can use math. Okay, we went 3 to 70K last time. What's the likelihood that we go from 15 to 150? That's a 10x. 3 to 70K was a 20x, right? Each cycle, the amplitude, the multiple from the bottom is getting less. Law of diminishing returns, right? But from the bottom to 150 is a 10x just on Bitcoin. That seems pretty fucking impressive to me if it happens. However, that's an arbitrary number. So by using market structure, it allows you to make sure that even if we don't get your arbitrary number, you have a rule where you're going to get out. You're not going to end it because once it happens, right? Let's say you thought it was going to 80 and you never sell. And then we get this market structure break and you go, I don't care. It's going to 80. Well, what happens when we drop 50%? Right? You don't want to get stuck holding that. So you held Bitcoin for 2 years, hoping it goes to 80K. It gets to 70. You don't sell any. And next thing you know, it's back at 30. You're going to be pissed, right? So same thing goes here. If we break 3-day structure, once we're above all-time high and we're trending again, if we break 3-day structure, I think there's a very good chance that the top is in. It might not be for sure, but at least you're making sure you're locking in some profit, right? After a major structure change. The other nice thing about this is let's say, yeah, we go boom, 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 and we break this. You have two things you can do here. One, you look here. And if we come up here, right, and we reject, one, that's going to be an epic short, and you can sell up here, right, any spot that you didn't get out of. But two, if we start going bullish again and we just do this, and this starts getting bullish again, great, you can buy back. You can always buy back. Sure, maybe you miss part of the move, but I'd way rather be defensive, make sure I'm locking in some profit, have a plan for getting out when we're in price discovery and no one knows where it's going to end or what's going to happen, versus just holding and hoping that that arbitrary number I put in guess when you can always get back in, right? If 3-day structure breaks, but then it reclaims, it's bullish again, buy back. So what? You missed a little bit of the move. Who cares? So hopefully that's helpful, guys. I do think that last part of the video there is very important about what to do in price discovery. Anyways, talk to y'all later. Peace.